The big question, not just what happens to the parents, but also the children who benefited from the cheating scandal. And well before the scandal broke, Olivia Jade was famous for her presence on social media. Well, now she's become target number one for public outrage.
Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to The Right Opinion, the home of a twat with too much free time, and today we are talking about the education system, and a YouTuber who cut a few corners. Hooray. You see, my friends, I attend university, or college as the Americans love to call it. Exciting, I know. Behind basically everything else in my life, education is my favourite activity. However, I'm not here to discuss how much I definitely love my courses because for all I know, the tutors might be watching. But if you are, give me good grades or else my next video might be on you, and I might just cross my arms. As always, the subjects I cover have a YouTube twist thrown in, and today is no exception because we are going to university. Hooray, get your degree and come on in. But more importantly, to the University of Southern California, to a situation that has garnered a lot of attention recently, and a YouTuber who has been at the center of it. Now, to provide some background for you twats, the University of Southern California, abbreviated to USC, is one of the more prestigious educational institutes in the world, which specializes in business, performing arts, and engineering. And if I asked you, my audience, what you think it would take to obtain entry into such a coveted establishment, you might say, I know, good grades, strong SATs.
According to court documents, she and Bella's father, designer Massimo Giannulli, resorted to bribes because Bella's academic qualifications were at or just below the low end of USC's admission standards.
A willingness to learn, strong work ethic.
But I do want the experience of like game days, partying. I don't really care about school, as you guys all know.
And of course, no meddling and no corruption whatsoever.
Her famous parents, who live in this sprawling mansion in LA, are charged with spending $500,000 in bribes to get their daughters into USC.
Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you Olivia Jade. Olivia Jade is a YouTuber, a beauty, fashion and lifestyle YouTuber to be more precise. She makes videos in which she sometimes buys expensive items, sometimes buys cheaper items, does fun, quirky challenges, publishes tutorials for her adoring, loving fanbase, and even more excitingly, collabs. Sometimes with her friends, sometimes with more popular YouTubers, but sometimes, and most interestingly, with her mother, who is also deeply involved in the topic today. Her mother is actress Lori Loughlin. If you've watched any mid-tier TV show, then you'll probably be familiar with her face, because that's the market that she has decided to dominate. Lori's husband is Massimo Giannulli, the founder of the Massimo fashion house. So with all that talent in the genes, she must have success running through her veins, right? Let's discuss that. Because Olivia Jade was a student at the prolific University of Southern California, and on top of this, it appears that she was a competitive rower with athletic credentials to boot. However, all was not as it seems, as in March 2019, she was involved in a huge scandal which alleged that certain families had been bribing various institutions to enable admission where they may not have obtained it otherwise. In the midst of this, Olivia Jade's parents were amongst those indicted for their participation in the scandal. Now, in the instance of many of these children, because they weren't public figures, the attention was primarily and almost solely on their parents, as they were considerably higher profile. The exception in this situation being our good friend here, Olivia Jade. It seems that the only rowing Olivia Jade will be doing is up shit creek without the paddle. The publication of this led to immediate backlash, spilling all over onto her channel and subsequently causing her to practically disappear from social media, disabling comments on her Instagram and YouTube account and laying low throughout the public uproar. On top of this, many sponsors who had worked with her in the past made the decision to cease relations, including Sephora and Tresemme. She has suffered, and many would argue justifiably so. Unfortunately, when you're a public figure preaching on your content, when people claim you're involved in a corrupt scheme, many don't just feel annoyed but betrayed that a person who may have inspired them was not who they claimed to be. In the heat of the moment, and with the outrage brimming, it was probably understandable that many people wanted to go in on her for the whole situation. But as always, at The Right Opinion, we go deeper than I go in Primink. Sorry, inside joke. Literally. On the surface, this is a fairly cut and dry situation. Bribery is bad, and I'm not just here to come to the conclusion that bribery is bad and we shouldn't participate in it, because that's bloody obvious. I think, damn you contrarians. But there is a bit more. Because as the daughter and as a YouTuber, a person who has a closer relationship with their viewers than any of the actual celebrities, she has faced unbelievable amounts of backlash. And on top of that, many narratives that much of her content has been completely compromised due to the scandal. However, on the other hand, many people have been criticised for jumping to conclusions too quickly. And at the time, without information on Olivia Jade's involvement, it seemed unfair to hone in all the criticism on her when it's clear there are other individuals who are much more conscious of their activity and are probably more responsible for the situation we observed in the headlines. I want to take these narratives, exposit some cultural observations, conduct some investigative work, gather some background, and hopefully really provide some evaluations of the actual case to see if we can come to a conclusion about Olivia Jade's involvement, and subsequently state if the response that many have directed towards her has been justified, and what is the best course of action for her. Obviously, this won't be discussing the extreme responses, which are never really welcome, but I do trust that a majority of responses did not reflect that mentality. So now I've explained my plan, I think it's best we begin to carry it out. Let's go. Olivia Jade started out her channel in 2014. She started it with a plan to have it as mostly beauty oriented, with her opening video sort of laying that out over the copyright-free ukulele music that definitely does not make me suffer or want to die.
I've been wanting to make this channel for so long now, and I'm so happy I've finally gotten around to doing it. Please comment down below.
These videos were generally harmless, and it does legitimately seem like she has an interest in the content she's making. Just someone talking about the stuff that she wants to do. She had this early Q&A where she was asked why she started her YouTube channel.
Kelly257, what got you into YouTube? Well, I don't know. I just wanted to make one, so I did.
Clearly a sign of motivation. Now, besides the god-awful musical choices that have become stuck in my ears and will probably need hours of Elton John to cleanse it, nothing particularly stood out to me as offensive in what she did at first. She was your typical girl with a decent ability in the socializing area. However, at the same time, she never really came across as anything more. Although she was nothing offensive, she was also rather flavorless.
What do you want to be when you're older, and what college do you want to attend? Okay. So I have no idea what college.
Well, that's aged well. I jest, but my point stands. She's just the sort of aimless vlogger with nothing particularly exceptional about her personally. So how did she end up gathering the momentum that she has today, or at least prior to the beginning of March? I mean, the short answer is that she's loaded like a mofo, but I want to expand on this too. Many vloggers are built on a fairly simple concept, that their lifestyle has something we desire. It often provides a window for many audience members to live through and aspire to, and this gives the upper hand to many people who have at least some sort of step up. Now, let me make this absolutely clear. Being rich does not predispose you to vlogging success. As much as starting off with very little doesn't mean you can't gain a foothold in what you're doing. But having a famous family member that you can parade on your channel is definitely an advantage that Olivia made the most of, and it shows. In her first videos, the best performing content were the videos where she featured her mother. Out of the first set of uploads, these videos completely outshone all the other content in their performance, because they offered something that other creators really couldn't. Famous people. Wow. You know these days how many people will complain that YouTube has essentially become a platform that pushes already established celebrities over the wholesome grassroots content that anyone can support themselves with. Well, it was 2014 when Olivia Jade set her channel up. Is it not fair to ask what was different exactly? Well, to completely understand that, we have to ask ourselves about the problem that many people have with celebrities who are currently dominating the platform. In my opinion, the main problem that many people have with the current wave of creators is that, philosophically speaking, YouTube has an organic appeal that means to a lot of the audiences the idea that there's a playing field in which everyone starts on zero. If someone joined YouTube and YouTube just gave them 1 million subscribers, people would be kind of pissed off. And although that's not exactly what happens when other celebrities enter the platform, it often feels like they bring such a reputation with them that it gives them an unfair advantage. Now, this is not something that I'm exactly concerned about, because I don't believe that many of these celebrities can really adapt to the truly authentic environment. I personally believe that there will always be an audience for creators who haven't constantly lived on the pedestal that stardom often brings. However, I understand why it frustrates people that YouTube throws its weight behind such content like it's the future. The thing about Olivia Jade is that she didn't piss people off because she hadn't established herself in any other industry at that point, and therefore, even if she had both an advantage and a gimmick in the fact that her mother was relatively famous, she hadn't established a reputation as a celebrity outside of the platform. Celebrities are relatively alienated from the general public and therefore have to develop a top-down relationship when they construct these YouTube channels, whereas people like Olivia Jade were building relationships to the audience from the bottom up. And although she definitely had a privilege in that she was more than ready to spend for cheeky giveaways, she flew under the radar because many of these advantages were much more implicit and she wasn't known prior to the platform.
I've been there, and every other YouTuber that you watch and that's your favorite has also been there. I can almost guarantee it. No one starts out with 1 million subscribers. No one starts out with 100,000. No one even starts out with 10 subscribers. You start from 0. You have to work yourself up that way. So if it's something you're passionate about and something you actually like doing, and you're not doing it to get famous or like whatever, become an influencer, make this your job. If you're actually doing it because you like doing it, I think you're gonna get really far, and you just have to be persistent and tell yourself like, okay, like I'm doing this because I like it.
Yet those subtle advantages allowed her to establish herself as a well-off beauty blogger that was also your girl next door. A rather strange dynamic when you think about it, but one that works in these instances because we like people who we can relate to and even imagine ourselves in their position. She's a laid-back kind of girl who's doing well for herself but can bond with people using universal topics. That's the sort of balance you need for a protagonist, and why someone like, for example, Bobby Misner doesn't work. People who make a big deal out of their privilege are not particularly well liked. At the end of the day, Olivia Jade is just a passive result of the system. At first, the only real appeal that she seemed to pertain was the fact that she was related to famous people. However, eventually the rest of her content began to perform well because the other key appeal that many people enjoy is the clout. There's a reason that people who otherwise have nothing really going for them, like Lance Stewart, manage to acquire millions of views beyond just the clickbait. When we watch vlogs because they are a window into someone's life, once they gain some sort of momentum and fan base, it becomes appealing to want to interact with them, even if the content that they're pumping out is fairly mindless. With that said, I wouldn't say Olivia Jade's videos were anything particularly bad, and she did have some neat concepts that she played with. If I was going to prom and wanted a lovely dress, maybe her suggestions would be useful. A lot of her videos were fairly standard, but it's clear what her appeal is. It's the juxtaposition between someone who's famous, but at the same time down to earth and not above us plebeians, giving us some insight about what it's like to live that life. It gives us the sort of impression that they are just like us. She's just a girl with a bit more money, and she's doing with that money what you do with that money as well. And she wants to help you right down that road too, right? I think it's best we talk about the next spicy part. Most YouTube audiences don't hate people for the sake of being rich. Hell, in many instances, we welcome the diversity of the lifestyle that they can show to us. It can provide us with some pretty great entertainment, and if that can help provide some escapism from people's often depressing daily lives, then who the hell am I to talk it down? However, at the same time, we like to be under some perception that these guys are like us, have to answer to the same system as us, and play the same ball game as us. And although this is seldom actually the case, it would cause far too much stress to the average viewer to be picking apart every subtle privilege that many of these creators might have access to. Equally, a creator in that position may be pretty ignorant to the political complexities that come with such discourse and just want to entertain people, and that's also fair enough. At the end of the day, we want to see the circumstance as not necessarily defining the person, even if it does of course influence them. However, when these privileges are taken advantage of and do fall into the public eye, they cause a whirlwind of outrage because this creator who has sold themselves on the platform that this lovely relatable person has their platform undermined. And today's situation is probably one of the worst examples of that. Let's indulge ourselves in the details then. So at around the start of March, we became aware that there was a transpiring incident occurring, with one of the people being involved our little vlog darling, Olivia Jade. As explained earlier, the headlines read that Olivia Jade had been involved in a bribery scheme that had gained her admission to the prestigious University of Southern California, and there was immediate backlash driven by very strong sentiments. This is all important, and we'll definitely discuss the justification of that in a bit, but for the moment I want to actually lay down the details because many of them have been filtered out by the media. The golden question that matters to me is how complicit or aware was Olivia Jade in all of this? To do that, we're pulling up the indictment documents and creating a timeline. For those who are interested, I'll be leaving a link to the document amongst the references as usual in case you would like to see the full context. Olivia Jade's application begins around page 91. We're in July 2017 right now. Olivia Jade's sister had just been admitted to USC under similar bribery-related pretenses, and the family were prepared to go through the same system of application again. The individual, named CW1 in this instance, is helping them create a fraudulent profile for their daughter that will enable them to gain entry to the university. How are they going to do this? Well, they're going to fabricate rowing credentials. To do this, they need to send every single detail possible to make it look valid. And this is where a very important element comes in, because one of those details was a photo of Olivia Jade at an ergometer, which can mean a few things, but in this instance, it is typically referring to an indoor rowing machine. It seems that Olivia must have had some conscious knowledge that something may have been going on. In some cases, children were excused as ignorant due to the fact that they may have been doing it under the pretense of a photo shoot. And this is not an impossible defense here, but it's certainly something that Olivia would need to probably provide an explanation of if she wanted to gain the empathy of her audience. So she was approved through the subcommittee in November, and there was a congratulatory email and money was transferred. All fairly routine. However, the testimony does contain another very curious detail. The informant in this instance, CW1, claims that a guidance counselor at the high school confronted Olivia about her and her sister's credentials for their application, as they did not believe they were legitimate. What was said in that conversation, we cannot be certain, but if true, it is fairly incriminating. This is just a testimony. However, what makes for even more compelling evidence further to this is that in November, the mother, Lori, CC'd their younger daughter, Olivia Jade, in an email to the informant requesting help to complete the application without the attention of their quote little friend at the high school. This was subsequently resolved in a following email stating that USC was surprised to hear that there was a concern. This is complemented with another voicemail from one of the participants in this scheme, Donna Haenel, the now former athletic director, to try and make sure the scheme wasn't found out. So this is all going on right now. The parents' participation was exposed through a sting operation that documented calls in which the parents make fairly candid admissions of their involvement. The girls themselves aren't directly involved in these calls, but with everything considered, it makes it hard to deny that there must be some awareness from Olivia Jade, unless she really did not ask any questions or make any assumptions at all. But I doubt many people would buy that, in spite of the responses that she has made disassociating herself. The whole situation has soured the perception towards her and placed some statements in a new light.
But I do want the experience of like game days, partying. I don't really care about school, as you guys all know.
Now, normally, this would not be a big deal. There are a lot of people who go to university without a great work ethic. And in a way, if you were a popular YouTuber, maybe you would just want to get through and have a good time while you're at it. But the thing is, this is not just an incredibly prestigious university, but Jade also entered on the basis of athletic exceptionalism, something that would take immense effort. And many of those admissions are typically done on a selective basis. So if they obtained it, it is very possible that someone else was likely denied it. Someone else who firstly deserved it more and probably needed it more as well. Equally, it does compromise Olivia Jade's rhetoric at other points.
He's honestly really helpful. I can just look at that for inspiration, I guess, and seeing that hard work does pay off. He didn't come from a lot, so it's cool to see that
He built it all himself.
She's just ruined whatever perception people previously had of her. If she was going for the party girl who wants to have a good time, then she shouldn't be cheating the system trying to portray herself as anything else. And if she was going for the girl who's always on the grind, then she shouldn't be partaking in an elitist scheme that is for people who are basically too lazy or too unskilled, and completely benefits off the back of the parent's income and none of her actual own work whatsoever. And that's what is the worst about this situation. It is the pinnacle of laziness. And I want to take this forward prior to providing some personal thoughts on the situation. This is an issue that resonates with me a lot because I applied for a very prestigious university and I made it through to the final interview stage before being rejected. Given how hard I worked for it and given how many hurdles I had faced, not just to do with the application but due to all the complications, real life interference and so on, it made me so bitter when they rejected me. And it made me even more bitter when I found out who had been accepted, because it didn't make sense to me. And as the following year turned to be one of the worst years in my life, I continuously linked it back to that stage and reran every single thing. What went wrong? What could I have done better? Did I even do anything wrong? Was the system corrupt? When this situation arose, it did not surprise me, because when you have people who know people and various other positions of power, it's very easily corrupted, because people want the best for their family, often to the point where they're willing to pull a few strings, and when you're aware of the strings being pulled, you want to pull them too, and then it becomes a string pulling contest. And the only people who lose are the people who don't have the ability to pull the strings, the people who don't have that privilege, many people who look towards you in the first place for that guidance. There have been reports saying that it's unclear if Olivia Jade knew or not about the scheme. To me, it's a bit clearer. It seems to me that Olivia Jade would have to have been extremely ignorant and unassuming if she didn't at least have some knowledge of this. And she's going to have to respond to a lot of the details if she wants to gain back the fans that she's lost. It seems incredible to me that she has a YouTube following, her own brand, successful parents, and still they wanted her to have more. With this in mind, it's very difficult for me to have sympathy, because it was not an action justified by desperation at no other option, it was an action justified by greed. And of course, her parents are definitely the greatest influences in this, but when she's the prime beneficiary of the scheme, she can't be surprised to have some responsibility at her doorstep. She obviously doesn't deserve the cruel comments and so on, but I don't think it's fair for outlets to scope in on that as if it encompasses the situation or the criticism. Most comments typically encompass a very snarky attitude to a lack of rowing qualification, and I'm one to have commented in the past when I think outrage can go too far, but this is the stuff that many people have a personal connection with because many of us have gone through the system, and we want it to be fair. It's a real shame we live in a world where many people feel completely defined by the university they attend, to the point that some are willing to play dirty just to get into them. And it's not like I don't understand. You look at many of the top performing people in certain areas and many of them have attended the same circle of institutes, but they are in that position for a reason, and you are not. As for the parents, well...
But yeah, I did some really shady when I was younger. I don't know how I didn't get caught for it. Lucky I'm alive and breathing. Really their only thing was for me was like about safety, like don't Uber by yourself, don't like be classy, you only get one reputation, like that whole sort of thing.
The mother in this instance started as the source of her daughter's success, and ultimately was the source of this conflict that has caused the hiatus and damage to the channel. And unfortunately, it's not like people are going to want to see her back on the channel. Maybe for a quick jail cell interview, that might pull views, but it wouldn't create prolonging credibility. The parents tried to give the children an advantage, but now have actually impacted their chances because they're going to live with that stigma, especially Olivia Jade, as someone who is well known to many people. Whether that's deserved or not, it's a legacy that will sting. Olivia Jade is probably just a person who's used to receiving good things without asking questions, and she thought she'd not ask questions and take what she can get. However, as many of us have found, that is seldom the best route to take. Olivia Jade is not just a public figure, but she's a YouTube figure. She's not the same as your typical celebrity. She has that closer relationship. People look towards her for guidance. We idolize these people, whether they want that or not. These are clearly private matters in many ways. However, they spill over onto her public reputation as they compromise what she claimed to have stood for and what many people saw her as. When we see a public figure embroiled in these controversies, although I don't think it should necessarily spell the end of their career, because people can learn and grow, it might be worth taking a few months away from YouTube to focus on the education side of things. I personally think that she should withdraw from the university and she should rerun the application system, because it's clear there need to be more repercussions for people who might consider this scheme in the future. We shouldn't merely be at ease that this has been found out, because it's likely just a fraction of it. There is probably many more schemes going on. I mean, it was reported at the time this transpired, Olivia Jade was on the USC's chairman of the board of trustees' $100 million yacht. Now, besides the question of how someone can spend $100 million on a bloody yacht, it should really be a red flag that these elite links lie deep. On top of this, the fact that Olivia Jade has now been proven to be at the university under false pretenses, and given all the media attention, it might be genuinely beneficial for her to drop out and actually demonstrate some self-sufficiency. She's going to be alright regardless of the situation. Her parents are clearly successful, and it may be somewhat validating for herself, rather than having this reputation hang over her. However, by the looks of it, the university will be keeping her in attendance, so that will be down to her own decision, and it will be down to other people to judge it on their own basis. If she does choose to stay, and if she's allowed to stay, I'd recommend working a bit harder, because you may well be standing in someone else's place. I'm sure many people watching this video today have cheated in a test at some point in their life, but the difference is that's something that anyone can do, and most people do on a much smaller scale, with a much lesser effect. I said this at the start of the video. People have privileges. Some are obtained within society's bounds that we can look past to her position due to her status as an entertainer. But Olivia Jade benefited from a privilege that took advantage of the system, and therefore her chill, laid-back persona no longer seemed like it was just your rich girl doing what anyone else would do while still getting that bread. It felt like it was a girl who didn't have to do anything because her position was too secure. Even if it's not on camera, we want to know that people are going to go through the same system as us. We would like the world to be balanced. It's not. When people who preach it to their followers are showed to not stand by those principles themselves, it annoys us. This isn't just a bad decision, this isn't just hypocritical, this has been a long played out scenario which was calculated and conducted. It is bad. Olivia Jade has so much of her life ahead of her. I take this as a serious learning experience and recommend getting in touch with the hard work that people actually do to get a position at the university, because this seems like it's either an outcome of being seriously out of touch or lacking empathy for others who work far too hard. That's sometimes what having copious amounts of money, a fan base who seldom challenge you, and parents who will go too far for your protection will foster. And it's definitely something we should discuss if we want to create a world of people that actually look out for each other. It sounds corny, but it's true, and it's what I believe in. I hope she sorts herself out and manages to respond to some of the points discussed today, because after this investigation, it does seem like what she established herself as is somewhat compromised. And a lot of the upset from people who admired her is kind of justified. I don't think her YouTube channel is an industry plant, and it doesn't seem like she's just another celebrity trying to be relatable. It seems like she does genuinely care about the videos she makes, but she's certainly alienated a lot of her audience through this scheme, because otherwise we wouldn't picture her as the sort of person to be involved in that sort of stuff. The sponsors will come back, the money will come back, but I think it will be down to her to bring the integrity back, and I think personally that's the honorable thing to do. Oh, and one more thing before I finish. Bribery is bad. Thank you. So, that's the video. Hope you guys enjoyed. Would love to hear your thoughts on the situation in the comment section below. Really interesting one, and I hope that I've covered it in a bit more detail than some other people have. I would like to give a big shout out to the editors. They have once again done a stellar job, and I'm going to link them in the pinned comment. Go and check their channels out, or whatever links they put there, and send them some love. They've done a fantastic job. Fantastic job. Secondly, I want to give big thanks to the Patreons who've been very generous as always. I need to give personal thanks to Evening Steel, who's on $50, Connor, who's also on $50, and Some Hullabaloo, who's also on $50. And on $100 is Brandon again. What a mad lad. You are truly a legend, and I appreciate you a lot. Thank you. If you want to just chat with me, you can hit me up on Twitter at The Right Opinion, on Facebook, on Discord. I do my best to be responsive there too. I don't really have too much else to say today, so I just hope you're having a fantastic week, whatever day this goes up. I love you lots and I appreciate you guys a lot. I will see you in the next one.